I'm going to talk you through a Part D answer from the Eduqas Religious Studies paper. This is the GCSE Paper 1, which for Eduqas is Philosophical Issues in the Modern World, and this is from the Good and Evil topic. It's a Part D, and so it's an evaluation question, and so they're after you not just showing good subject knowledge, using key terms, using sources of wisdom, but also making some kind of judgment or decision about whether the views you present are convincing. And so it's really important that you remember to do that. If all that you do is present different arguments, but there's no evaluation in there, you are really going to limit yourself as to how many marks you can get. Remember, at Lytchett, we advise you to use our ABCD structure. So A is answer the question, B is back it up, C is challenge, and D is decide. And we're advising that you give an initial response to the statement, ideally saying who that response would come from. You're then going to back it up twice, just as you might do in a Part C, but then you're going to challenge that view and then make a decision about which is more convincing, the original evidence or the counter argument. And you're going to do that again, and then if you have time, you're going to give a big D, a big decision, a conclusion. Now, you're not necessarily going to get more marks for your conclusion. However, if you are someone that wanders off track, a conclusion can be handy to help you return to the statement. We're advising you to give your judgments at the end of each paragraph, because if you save all your judgments or evaluation until the end and you run out of time, you risk losing lots and lots of marks or being placed in a lower band. So I'm going to talk you through each of my paragraphs and explain to you my thinking process as I was putting this answer together. I have just sat at my notebook and typed frantically for 15 minutes, so there will be typos in there and it's not going to be perfect, but it's quite rare that you give a perfect answer when working under exam conditions. However, it will be a grade 9 or I'm in the wrong job, and there might be slightly more here than you would write in an exam because you type slightly faster than you write usually, but it means that everybody has got something here that they could hopefully add to their answer. So let's start with our first paragraph. So the statement we're discussing is suffering is a price worth paying for free will. And I just spotted my first typo. I'd missed out the word for, so I'm going to admit to having just put that back in. But my first response, and note how I'm saying who the response is from, so it's from many Christians, would agree with the statement, and they would say that free will is what basically makes us human. And if we don't have the ability to make completely free choices, even if that means that that causes suffering, then you've taken away from what it is to be human. You've made us like robots. And then I'm going to back that up, and I'm going to refer to two scholars, two thinkers who are named on the specification for good and evil. And I'm going to go to Augustine and I'm going to go to Irenaeus. I'm also going to use C.S. Lewis in my decision here, but he is an extra, so you will never face a question on C.S. Lewis. So first of all, I'm going to go to the Theodicy, nice key term, Eduqas love key terms, the Theodicy of Augustine, who says, yes, suffering is the result of free will, but that is what separates us from animals, that ability to make decisions, and so it's worth the price of suffering. Can you see how I've echoed the wording from the statement here and again here? I've then got a nice linking word here, and Eduqas love words like moreover, in addition, alternatively, and so on. It shows you're building evidence and contrasting views. Then moreover, Irenaeus, who's my second scholar, so I'm trying to impress with my subject knowledge, is saying, yes, suffering is a consequence of free will, but it's important because through those consequences, we can learn to be better people, and we also learn from the process of making the right decision, and we have to do that on our own, and that helps us be more in the image of God. So they're my two kind of back it ups for this original statement here. I'm then going to go in and counter this. This is the section highlighted in pink. This is an example of some evaluation, if you like, because I'm pointing out what could be seen as wrong with that view. And I'm saying, but actually, are we honestly going to say that some of the extreme suffering that society has experienced, for example, the Holocaust, is worth free will? It would be quite difficult to go to someone who was, an immediate victim of the Holocaust or an immediate victim of, a serial killer and say, well, you're in pain, but it's worth it because, that person got to exercise their free will. So that's my counter argument. I'm then coming in with my view, and I'm showing off here. I'm linking it with C.S. Lewis, who says that, free will is part of what it is to be human. And so as difficult as it is for us to accept, suffering is the price that we pay, and it's a price worth paying in order to be completely free human beings. And can you see how, again, I've echoed the wording from the statement at the end of my paragraph? I have said, and for that reason, I agree that suffering is a price worth paying. That should say for free will there. I'll correct that. Then I'm going on to my second paragraph. At Lytchett, we practiced handwriting out Part Ds, and you can only do this process twice. And I think it's better to have two paragraphs with two sets of evidence, a counter and some evaluation, than to have three overly brief paragraphs. So we're advising you to stick to two main sections in your Part D. So again, I have identified who would give the view, so critics of Christianity, and they might say that if God existed, surely there would be some way of giving us some free will so that you limit the suffering. And then I'm going to expand on that a little bit. And again, look at how I'm using key terms. I've got omnipotent and omniscient there. And so I'm going to say, why can't God, if he is omnipotent and omniscient, why can't he create people that feel like they have free will, but they don't, or even have free will, but they don't want to do some of the really evil things that we associate with periods of history like the Holocaust? And so they might say that extreme suffering isn't a price worth paying for total free will. Again, look how I have echoed the wording of the statement here. Then I've got my nice linking word, alternatively. And so alternatively, it could be argued that yes, we can have free will, but that God is then going to step in and he's going to limit the suffering that is caused by that person's free will. And I'm very aware that I haven't really spoken about any Bible passages here. And so I'm just very quickly putting in a reference to the parting of the Red Sea as my example of God stepping into history to limit suffering or to help the Israelites or Hebrews out. And then I've got my counter argument, and I've deliberately used the third scholar from the good and evil topic, and that's John Hick, who's often paired up with Irenaeus. But I've deliberately named them separately and separated them out to make my answer look better. And I'm going to say, but John Hick argues that God has to keep some kind of distance from humans so that we preserve faith, because if God makes his existence too obvious, you don't need faith to believe in him, it's just obvious. And I've used a nice key phrase there, that's epistemic distance. So that's God maintaining some distance from humanity so that faith is required to believe in him, it's not obvious. And then I'm giving, so that was my counter argument, and then I'm making my decision here. And I'm saying that I'm just going to reject the idea that God would give some kind of limited free will, because that just doesn't make sense. You're either free or you're not. I could have said limited free will is sort of a contradiction, really. And so if we're going to be free, we have to be completely free. And then echoing the words from the statement up here, suffering is the price we have to pay if we are to be free. See how I've echoed the wording? And now I'm running out of time, but that's completely fine because I've got an awful lot here. But just to make sure that the examiner knows that I'm answering the question, I've then got a little concluding sentence. And so I say, to conclude, I think that free will is an essential part of being a human, which is echoing what I've said here. And therefore we have to accept that suffering is a price worth paying, that should say for free will, echoing the words here.